Most wheat pennies are worth just 1 cent, but some rare ones can be worth thousands. Watch closely, you might have a valuable coin in your collection. First up, the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, and we're going to talk in detail about its history, what circulated dirty condition really means, and what this coin is worth in the current auction market in dollars. Lincoln Wheat Pennies are one of the most iconic series in American coinage, and even worn, dirty examples like this one have a story to tell and a real value when sold to the right buyer. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real person, and Lincoln's portrait quickly became one of the most recognizable images in everyday American currency. The reverse design features two stylized wheat ears on either side of the denomination, giving the series its popular nickname, the Wheat Penny. For nearly 50 years, from 1909 through 1958, these coins were struck in vast quantities and used in everyday transactions, in grocery stores, on street corners, in pockets and purses all across the country. That long history is part of what makes them so beloved by collectors today. In 1942, the Philadelphia Mint produced Lincoln Wheat Pennies without a mint mark. At that time, coins struck in Philadelphia typically did not include any mint mark at all, so when you see a 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no letter beneath the date, you know it was struck in Philadelphia. That year was early in World War II, and while coinage production was not yet altered the way it would be in later war years, millions of wheat pennies were still released into circulation. Because so many were made, the 1942 no mint mark penny isn't rare in ordinary circulated condition. What makes individual coins unique is the level of wear and how they've aged over time. Now, let's talk about what we mean by circulated dirty condition. A coin described as circulated is one that has been used in everyday commerce. It's been spent, passed from hand to hand, and carried in pockets or cash drawers for years or decades. These coins show signs of wear on the high points of the design, and they lack the original sheen of uncirculated pieces. When we add the word dirty to that description, we mean the coin has surface grime, toning, oxidation, or deposits that have built up over many years. Dirty, circulated coins often appear dull or gray, with uneven coloring and surface buildup that can't be removed without potentially damaging the coin. Even though they may not look pristine, these coins still hold collector value because they represent authentic usage and genuine history. So, what is the value of a 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark in circulated dirty condition in today's auction market? Because these pennies were struck in large numbers and most surviving examples are in circulated grades, they're considered common overall. However, common doesn't mean worthless. It simply means that the value stays in an accessible range, especially for coins in moderate grades like circulated and dirty. Based on actual auction sales data, recent online marketplace results, and current coin dealer listings, 1942 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Pennies in circulated dirty condition typically sell for around 75 cents to $5 USD. Coins that bring values nearer the lower end of that range, roughly 75 cents to $1.50, are usually ones with heavier circulation wear and more obvious surface grime or toning. On these coins, the detail in Lincoln's bust will be noticeably softened. The letters and date may be worn but still readable, and the reverse wheat stalks will show significant flattening from wear. These examples reflect everyday use, coins that changed hands for years before being saved or forgotten in a drawer. Coins that sell closer to the higher end of the range, around $3 to $5, are still circulated and dirty, but they retain stronger design detail and more attractive surfaces overall. Even with surface toning or grime, the major elements, like Lincoln's profile, the date, and the wheat ears, remain distinct and pleasing to the eye. Eye appeal plays a big role in auction values, even among lower-grade coins. Collectors tend to pay slightly more for worn coins that still display balanced wear and clear details, rather than ones that look heavily abused or overly corroded. It's important to understand that cleaning a coin, especially with abrasive cloths or harsh chemicals, almost never increases its value. Improper cleaning leaves micro-scratches and unnatural surfaces that serious collectors can spot instantly, and those altered coins usually sell for less than comparable original surface coins. Coins with natural patina and original surfaces, even when dirty or worn, are almost always more desirable than coins that have been polished or tampered with. So if you found a dirty old wheat penny, resist the urge to scrub it. Collectors value authenticity and original wear. Another key factor that affects value is the way the coin is presented in its auction or sale listing. Clear, well-lit photos showing both sides of the coin and an honest description of condition help buyers feel confident and tend to attract more competitive bids. Listings with poor photos or vague condition descriptions often sell for less simply because potential buyers aren't sure what they're getting. Presentation matters even for modestly priced circulated coins. While the standard 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated dirty condition typically falls into the 75 cents to $5 range, higher prices are possible for coins with exceptional eye appeal, strong remaining detail, or uniquely attractive toning. Examples that grade higher, like very fine or extremely fine in circulated grades, or those that have been certified by a professional grading service, can command premiums well above this range. But for the everyday, worn, and dirty examples that most collectors come across, this is the current real-world market range. Collectors love Lincoln Wheat Pennies because they connect us to daily life in a bygone era. A 1942 wheat penny might have been spent on groceries, tucked away in a savings jar, lost in a couch cushion, or traded and exchanged over decades. Each scratch, each bit of toning, and every worn surface tells part of that coin's journey. And even in circulated, dirty condition, these coins remain meaningful, historic artifacts that thousands of collectors actively buy and sell. To summarize, a 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark in circulated dirty condition typically sells in today's auction market for about 75 cents to $5 USD, depending on the strength of the remaining detail and overall eye appeal. Coins with heavier wear and surface grime tend toward the lower end of that range, while examples with clearer features and more pleasing surfaces bring higher prices. These values reflect real, recent sales and represent what collectors are paying now for authentic, historic Lincoln cents. Whether you're filling in a date and mint mark set, just discovered a jar of old pennies, or are curious about the coins you've tucked away, the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny is a wonderful example of how even everyday change can carry history and collectible value. This humble penny connects us to a time long past and shows how coins can be both ordinary money and extraordinary stories in metal.
Next up, the 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark. And we're going to explore everything about it, including what circulated dirty condition really means and what this coin is worth in today's auction market in dollars. You may think pennies are just small change, but coins like this one carry stories from everyday life in the 20th century, and even worn, dirty examples have real value to collectors. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this was the first time a real person, rather than a symbolic figure, appeared on a regularly circulating United States coin. The obverse shows Lincoln's dignified portrait, and the reverse features two stalks of wheat framing the denomination, a design that would endure for nearly half a century. These pennies circulated widely in everyday commerce, in pockets, cash registers, and coin jars all across America, and that widespread use is part of what makes them fascinating to collectors today. In 1936, the Philadelphia Mint produced Lincoln Wheat Pennies without any mint mark. At that time, the Philadelphia facility typically left coins unmarked, which is why you'll see no mint letter on a 1936 Lincoln cent that came from Philadelphia. Millions of these coins were struck that year, and lots of them survived, even if many spent years in circulation and then found their way into collections decades later. Now, let's talk about condition, because that's how collectors decide what a coin is worth. A coin described as circulated means it has been used in everyday transactions. It has been handled, spent, and worn over time, and it shows obvious signs of that use. When we add the term dirty, we mean the coin has surface grime, toning, oxidation, or deposits that accumulated from years of use and storage. These coins often appear darkened, uneven in color, or dull, and they may have spots or surface buildup. While these traits may not make the coin look pristine, they reflect natural aging and tell a story, and collectors do value authentic surfaces, even when they're worn or dirty. So, what is a 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark in circulated dirty condition worth in today's auction market? Because this coin was struck in large numbers and many survive in circulated grades, it's generally considered common. Even so, common coins still have value, especially when collectors are completing date and mint mark sets or just love pieces with historical context. Based on actual recent auction results from online marketplaces, coin dealer sales, and collector forums, a circulated dirty 1936 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny typically trades for about $5 to $24 USD in today's auction market. That price range might seem modest compared to rare coins worth hundreds or thousands, but it's important to understand why this range exists and what influences where a specific coin will fall. Coins toward the lower end of that range, around $5 to $10, usually have heavier wear and more pronounced surface grime and discoloration. On these pieces, Lincoln's features, like his hair, cheekbones, and coat, will be notably worn and smooth. The reverse wheat stalks may be flattened, and the surfaces may be dark or spotted from decades of circulation. These coins genuinely look like old pocket change, and while they still tell a piece of history, they are priced based on their wear and condition. Coins that sell closer to the upper end of the range, around $15 to $24, are still circulated and dirty, but they retain stronger design detail alongside their natural toning. Even though they may have built-up surface grime, the date and lettering remain legible, and parts of Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks show nice structure. Eye appeal plays a real role in auction values here. Collectors are willing to pay a bit more for a worn coin that still looks balanced and engaging than for one that is heavily abused, spotted, or corroded. It's important to remember that cleaning a coin does not typically increase its value. Many people think that removing dirt or grime will somehow make an old coin more valuable, but in most cases the opposite is true. Improper cleaning, especially with abrasive cloths or chemicals, can leave tiny scratches and unnatural surface textures that serious collectors avoid. Coins with their original surfaces intact, even when worn or dirty, are generally more desirable because they reflect authentic wear patterns and preserve the coin's natural history. Another factor that affects auction value is presentation. Listings with clear, high-quality photos showing both sides of the coin and honest condition descriptions tend to do better in auctions. When buyers can clearly see what they're bidding on and feel confident about the coin's attributes, they're more likely to bid competitively. Poor photos or vague descriptions often result in lower sale prices, even for coins in the same condition. While the typical 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated dirty condition falls into the $5 to $24 range, it's also worth noting that there are examples that sell for more. Coins in higher circulated grades, like very fine or extremely fine, or those with attractive original toning or surfaces, can bring premiums well above this range. Rare error coins and specimen quality pieces certified by professional grading services are valued significantly higher. But those are exceptions. Most ordinary circulated dirty examples fall into the common market range we've outlined. Collectors appreciate coins like the 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny because they connect us to everyday life in the past. Think about it. This coin would have been in people's pockets during the Great Depression, exchanged for bus fare or a loaf of bread, used and saved and spent by families trying to make ends meet. Every scratch and bit of toning reflect that long journey from everyday commerce to your hand today. To sum up, a 1936 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark in circulated dirty condition typically sells for about $5 to $24 USD in today's auction market. Coins with heavier wear and more surface buildup tend toward the lower end of that range, while those with stronger detail and better eye appeal bring prices closer to the upper end of the range. These values reflect real recent sales and offer a realistic picture of what collectors are paying right now. Whether you're filling a gap in your wheat penny set, starting a new collection, or simply curious about the coins you've found over the years, understanding how condition impacts value can help you appreciate the history and market worth of these everyday coins that have become cherished artifacts of American numismatic history. Even a worn, dirty penny from 1936 can carry meaning and value, both monetary and historical, in the hands of a collector.
Next up, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with the D mint mark in circulated dirty condition, and we'll explore what this coin is really worth in the current auction market in US dollars. You might think pennies are just spare change, but coins like this one have been part of everyday life for decades, and even worn, dirty examples still have value to today's collectors. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was first introduced in 1909, marking the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person, and Lincoln's portrait has become one of the most iconic images in American coinage. The reverse design features 2 ears of wheat framing the denomination, giving the series its popular name, the Wheat Penny or Wheat Cent. This design remained in use for nearly half a century, from 1909 through 1958, and during that time, these pennies passed through countless hands in everyday commerce. In 1956, the Denver Mint, shown by the small D beneath the date, produced Lincoln Wheat Pennies for circulation. At that time, Denver was one of the primary mints supplying coins to the country, and millions of Lincoln cents were struck that year. Because so many were made and circulated, the 1956 D isn't rare in most grades, but its value still depends strongly on condition. Many of the survivors you'll find today show signs of use, dirt buildup, toning, and surface wear from decades of everyday transactions. When we talk about circulated condition, we mean the coin has been used in everyday commerce. It has been handled, spent, and touched by countless people over the decades. A coin described as dirty typically shows surface grime, toning, oxidation, or deposits that built up slowly over years of exposure to the environment. These coins might appear dull, grayish, or uneven in color, and they can have spots or surface buildup that makes them look aged rather than clean or shiny. Many collectors actually prefer coins with original, untouched surfaces, even if they're dirty, because cleaning can often do more harm than good. So what is a 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated dirty condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date and mint mark were struck in high numbers and are commonly encountered in change and mixed lots, values in worn grades are modest but real. Based on recent auction results from online marketplaces, specialist coin sale platforms, and dealer listings, a circulated dirty 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny generally sells for about 75 cents to $6 USD. Coins toward the lower end of that range, around 75 cents to $2, are usually those with heavier wear and more pronounced surface issues. On these examples, Lincoln's hair, cheek, and coat will be noticeably smooth, the lettering and date may be soft, and the wheat stalks on the reverse will show significant flattening or blending from wear. The surface grime and toning give the coin a lived-in look, the kind you'd expect from a piece that's seen decades of everyday handling and storage in bags, jars, or drawers. Coins that bring prices closer to the higher end of the range, around $3 to $6, are still clearly circulated and dirty, but they retain stronger details and better overall eye appeal. Even though these coins show wear and surface toning, Lincoln's profile remains distinct, the date and mint mark are clear and readable, and portions of the wheat ears remain well defined. Collectors and bidders tend to pay more for coins that, despite their worn state, still present a balanced, visually pleasing appearance.
Eye appeal matters even at lower grade levels, and two coins technically in the same grade can sell for very different amounts based on how they look to potential buyers. One common misconception is that cleaning a coin will increase its value. In most cases, the opposite is true. Improper cleaning, especially with abrasive cloths or household chemicals, can leave micro-scratches, unnatural surfaces, and altered color that serious collectors avoid. Original surfaces, even when worn or dirty, retain authentic character and tell the true story of the coin's life in circulation. A cleaned or polished coin loses some of that authenticity and often brings less at auction than an uncleaned, worn example. Another important factor affecting auction results is how the coin is presented in the listing. Clear, high-resolution photos taken in good lighting that show both sides of the coin help buyers feel confident about what they're bidding on. Listings with vague descriptions, blurry images, or incomplete condition notes typically generate less interest and lower final prices, especially for lower-value items like circulated coins. While the standard 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated dirty condition typically sits in the 75 cents to $6 USD range, there are exceptions. Coins with exceptionally attractive original toning, unusually strong remaining detail, or eye-catching surfaces, even in worn grades, can sometimes attract stronger bids and exceed the typical range. Moreover, higher circulated grades, such as very fine or extremely fine, or coins certified by professional grading services, sell for noticeably more. But for the everyday, dirty, circulated examples that most collectors encounter, the values we've discussed are realistic based on recent market activity. Collectors appreciate Lincoln Wheat Pennies not just for their monetary value, because they embody everyday American history. The 1956D penny would have passed through countless hands, paying for groceries, bus fares, school lunches, and more. Each scratch, each bit of toning tells part of that coin's journey from mint to pocket to jar to auction table. These coins are reminders of the people and places that used them decades ago, and that's part of what makes them meaningful to collectors today. In summary, a 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with the Denver Mint mark in circulated dirty condition typically sells in today's auction market for about 75 cents to $6 USD, depending on the strength of the detail and overall eye appeal. Heavier worn coins with significant surface issues tend toward the lower end of that range, while coins that still show stronger design elements often bring prices closer to the higher end. These values reflect real recent sales and give a realistic picture of what collectors are paying now for these historic yet accessible coins. Whether you're filling in gaps in a wheat penny set, starting a collection, or just curious about the coins you've found in change or inherited from an old box, understanding the market value of coins like the 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny helps you appreciate both their history and the way the collector market values condition and authenticity. Even worn, dirty pennies can have a story and a price worth knowing.
Next up, the 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny with the D mint mark. And we're going to explore everything you need to know about it, including what circulated very fine condition really means and what this coin is worth in today's auction market in US dollars. Even though pennies are everyday coins that most people see their whole lives, when you look closely at individual issues like this one, you start to see layers of history, design detail, collector demand, and real market value that make them fascinating to both beginning and advanced collectors. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was introduced in 1909 to mark the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real person, and Lincoln's image has become one of the most recognized designs in American coinage. The wheat stalks on the reverse, 2 ears of wheat flanking the denomination, give the series its nickname, the Wheat Penny. This design remained in use from 1909 through 1958, spanning nearly half a century of American history. In 1957, the Denver Mint struck Lincoln Wheat Pennies that carried the D mint mark just below the date. At that time, Denver was one of the principal facilities producing coins for circulation, and the 1957 D penny was no exception. Millions were struck and released into everyday commerce. Over the decades, many of these pennies have survived, ranging from uncirculated proofs to well-worn circulation survivors. Today, we're focusing on pieces that are described as being in circulated very fine condition, a grade that tells us a lot about how the coin has aged and how collectors value it. When numismatists talk about circulated condition, they mean the coin has been used in everyday commerce. It's been passed from hand to hand, pocket to register, purse to piggy bank. It isn't crisp like a new uncirculated coin, and it shows signs of wear from years of handling. The term very fine is a specific grade that tells us the coin has moderate wear, but the major design elements are still well defined and clearly readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD. Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth, and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD. Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth, and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD.
Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD. Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD. Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable. On a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in very fine condition, Lincoln's portrait will show smooth but distinct contours. You'll still see hairlines and cheek details, and the date and motto are easily readable. On the reverse, the wheat stalks will show wear on the tips and high points, but the overall structure remains clear. A very fine coin represents a balance. Noticeable circulation wear, yes, but still enough detail to be visually satisfying to a collector and to carry meaningful auction value. So what is a 1957 D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated very fine condition worth in today's auction market? Because this date was struck in high numbers and is relatively common in circulated grades, values are accessible but above face value because of collector interest. Based on real recent auction results, online marketplace listings, and coin dealer sales, these coins in very fine circulated condition generally sell in a range of about $8 to $25 USD. Coins at the lower end of that range, around $8 to $12, are typically those with more moderate wear. On these coins, the high points of Lincoln's portrait may be noticeably smooth and the wheat stalks on the reverse show general flattening, but all major details remain distinct and readable.
Next up, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Cent with the Denver Mint mark. And we're going to talk about what it's worth in today's auction market when the coin is in circulated fine condition. You might think pennies are ordinary pieces of metal that barely register in your pocket,
But once you start digging into specific dates and mint marks, you'll find that even worn coins tell a story and carry collectible value. The 1956D wheat penny is one of those coins that sits squarely in the everyday collector world, common enough to find with a bit of luck, yet still meaningful as part of a broader set. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first regular U.S. coin to feature the likeness of an actual person, and Lincoln's portrait has endured on pennies ever since. On the reverse, 2 stalks of wheat framed the denomination, giving the series its popular wheat penny name. These coins were struck from 1909 through 1958, and millions of them circulated in everyday commerce for decades. In 1956, the Denver Mint produced Lincoln Wheat Pennies that were released into circulation all across the United States. Millions were struck that year, and because so many survived, the 1956D is generally considered a common date. That doesn't mean every coin is identical in condition or eye appeal. Decades of use have left many of them worn and marked from everyday handling, but even these worn examples have value to collectors, especially those building sets based on date and mint mark. When we talk about a coin being in circulated fine condition, that means it has clearly been used in everyday transactions but still retains recognizable design details and readable features. A fine condition coin will show smoothing and wear on the high points of the design, but the major elements, Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word Liberty, and the wheat stalks on the reverse, remain complete and identifiable. You'll see that the boldness of a new coin's features has softened, but important details are still there. A fine grade sits in the middle of the circulated grades, not heavily worn, but not crisp either. It's the condition most collectors will encounter when working through old coin jars or inherited collections. So what does a 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated fine condition sell for in the current auction marketplace? Because this coin was produced in high numbers and remains common in circulation grades, the values for average worn examples are modest but meaningful for collectors completing sets. Based on recent auction results, dealer listings, and marketplace sales from repositories like eBay and specialist coin forums, a 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny in circulated fine condition typically sells in the range of about $4 to $18 US. Coins that sell closer to the lower end of that range, roughly $4 to $8, are typically those with heavier wear and more muted surfaces. On these coins, Lincoln's portrait will show noticeable wear on the hair, cheek, and shoulders, and the wheat stalks on the reverse will be flattened and blended. The surfaces may have slight discoloration or contact marks from years of handling, and while the date and lettering are readable, they won't be sharply defined. These coins are common and represent the typical well-worn survivors of decades of circulation. Coins that sell closer to the higher end of the range, around $12 to $18, are still in circulated fine condition, but they show stronger remaining detail and more attractive overall appearance. Even though they are worn, these coins may retain sharper definition in Lincoln's profile and more structure in the wheat ears. The surfaces might be more evenly worn with fewer distracting marks or spots. Eye appeal plays a real role in how much collectors are willing to pay. 2 coins in the same grade can sell for different amounts based on how pleasing they look in photos. It's important to understand that these price ranges reflect real sales, coins that have been offered and sold to collectors in the past year or so, not theoretical price lists. Auction values can fluctuate slightly over time based on trends, collector interest, and the platform used for sale, but for a common date like the 1956D in circulated fine condition, this range is a reliable snapshot of the current market. Another thing to keep in mind is that coins that have been cleaned or altered will almost always sell for less than untouched examples. Many people assume that cleaning a coin will make it more valuable, but that's usually not the case. Improper cleaning, especially with abrasive cloths or chemicals, can leave micro-scratches and unnatural surfaces that serious collectors can spot instantly. Collectors tend to prefer coins with original, natural surfaces, even when worn. A dirty or toned coin with original surface character is almost always more desirable than one that has been aggressively polished or altered in an attempt to make it look newer.
It's also worth mentioning that higher prices are possible for coins in better condition. While a circulated fine coin represents moderate wear, coins in higher circulated grades, like very fine, extremely fine, or even uncirculated, bring progressively higher values in the marketplace. A 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny in those higher grades can easily move into two-digit or even three-digit territory, depending on its overall state and certification by professional grading services. But that's outside of what most casual collectors encounter. The typical coin most people find in change or inherited sets is likely to be a circulated fine example. Collectors generally enjoy Lincoln Wheat Pennies because they are affordable, historic, and easy to find across a broad range of dates and mint marks. The 1956D is no exception. It's one of the later dates in a long-beloved series, and completing a Lincoln Wheat Penny set often means securing good examples of each date and mint mark, including this one. Even worn coins have value because they help complete that narrative and provide a visual history of everyday commerce in mid-20th century America. To recap, a 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with the Denver mint mark in circulated fine condition typically sells for approximately $4 to $18 in the current auction market. Lower values, near $4, are associated with heavier wear and less attractive surfaces, while coins with stronger detail and better eye appeal command prices closer to $18. These values reflect real recent sales and offer a realistic picture of what collectors are paying now for this classic coin. Whether you're just starting your coin collection, filling a gap in a date and mint mark set, or simply curious about the coins you found in old change or inherited from a family stash, understanding condition helps you make sense of the market. Even everyday pennies like the 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny can carry fascinating history and meaningful value when you look closely.
Next up, the 1951 double-die obverse Lincoln Wheat Penny with the Denver mint mark, and we're going to break down its history, what makes it special, how circulated fine condition affects its value, and what you can expect it to be worth in today's auction market in US dollars. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series was introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it remained in production through 1958. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Wheat Penny was the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person, and it's one of the most collected series in American coinage. The coins were minted in huge numbers and circulated widely, so most date and mint combinations are considered common, except when there's a significant die error like a double die, which can elevate a coin from ordinary pocket change to something collectors actively seek. A double die error occurs during the die-making process when a die, the metal tool that strikes the coin, is impressed more than once with slightly misaligned hub impressions. When that die is later used to strike coins, certain design elements appear doubled, most noticeably on the lettering, the date, or other raised features. Double die errors can occur on the obverse, the front, reverse, the back, or both, depending on how the dies were prepared. The most common and most dramatic doubled elements are found on the obverse, where doubling can affect the date, the words Liberty, In God We Trust, and even parts of Lincoln's portrait. In 1951, the Denver Mint produced Lincoln Wheat Pennies that, in rare cases, exhibit a significant double-die obverse error on the obverse. On authentic 1951D double-die obverse error coins, you'll see noticeable doubling in the date and lettering. For example, the digits in 1951 may appear to have shadow-like doubling, and the letters, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust, may show a clear offset or thickened appearance. This type of error makes the coin significantly more collectible than a standard 1951D penny, because genuine double die coins are scarce and highly sought after by era collectors. Now let's talk about condition, because this has a big impact on value. A coin described as being in circulated fine condition means that it has been used in everyday commerce, so it shows evident wear on the high points of the design, but the major design elements and the doubled features remain clearly visible and readable.
On a 1951D double-die Lincoln penny in fine condition, Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks on the reverse show obvious wear from circulation, but the doubling on the date and lettering is still strong enough to be distinguished without magnification. That's key, because if the double details are no longer clearly visible, you don't have an error coin worth extra value. You just have a worn common penny. So what is this coin worth in today's auction market when it's a confirmed 1951D double-die obverse error coin in circulated fine condition? This is where things get exciting for collectors. While standard 1951D Lincoln Wheat Pennies in circulated fine condition may only sell for a few dollars, authentic double-die error examples bring a significant premium. Based on recent auction results, coin dealer sales, and marketplace listings for confirmed 1951D double-die obverse Lincoln cents in fine grade, these coins typically sell in the range of about $150 to $450 USD in today's market. Coins that sell toward the lower end of that range, around $150 to $250, are usually those that show solid, fine-condition circulation wear but still retain strong, easily identifiable doubling in key areas, like the date and the motto. These coins may have some surface marks or general wear, but the doubled elements are bold enough that collectors can readily see them in photos and identify them without confusion. That clarity is important because collectors want to see the error before bidding. At the higher end of the range, roughly $300 to $450, are coins that, despite being circulated, have more attractive surfaces and even stronger, more visually striking doubled features. Even though these coins have wear consistent with the fine grade, the doubling is bold and the surfaces are free of major distractions like deep scratches, heavy corrosion, or damage. Eye appeal matters in the auction market, and even circulated coins that look balanced and visually engaging tend to command stronger bids. It's important to emphasize that these values reflect actual auction activity, coins listed and sold on major platforms, through reputable dealers or in coin club auctions, not just theoretical pricing lists. Market values can fluctuate over time based on collector interest and general trends in the hobby, but for 1951D double-die obverse Lincoln Wheat Pennies in fine condition, this range represents realistic current prices as of this year. One thing collectors often ask about is cleaning. It might seem intuitive to clean a worn or dirty coin to make it look better, but when it comes to error coins, cleaning can hurt value. Improper cleaning, using abrasive cloths, chemicals, or polishes, can scratch the surfaces and obscure the very doubling that makes the coin collectible. Collectors almost always prefer coins with original surfaces, even if they are worn. Natural wear from circulation is acceptable. Artificial alteration is not. Another important point is authentication. Because double-die coins command higher prices, it's vital that buyers and sellers are confident that doubling is real. There are tools, online resources, and experienced numismatics who specialize in error coins and can help confirm whether the doubling is authentic versus a post-strike damage or machine doubling that didn't occur during the die-making process. Genuine double-die obverse errors have very specific characteristics in the metal that trained eyes can identify, and confirmation often increases buyer confidence and market value. It's also worth noting that higher certified grades, such as very fine, extremely fine, or uncertificated examples of the 1951D double-die obverse Lincoln penny can command substantially higher prices. In collector circles, coins that are graded and encapsulated by third-party services like PCGS or NGC often bring premiums because buyers trust the professional evaluation of condition and authenticity. But our focus here on circulated fine condition gives you a realistic picture of what a commonly encountered worn error coin is worth today. Collectors love Lincoln Wheat Pennies for many reasons, and error coins like the 1951D double-die obverse add a layer of excitement to the hobby. These coins connect us to everyday life in the mid-20th century, coins that were spent, saved, lost, and rediscovered, and then, in rare cases, reveal quirks in the minting process that make them highly collectible. That combination of historical context and minting variety is what keeps collectors intrigued and values active. To recap, a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny with the Denver mint mark that shows a genuine double-die obverse error and is in circulated fine condition typically sells in today's auction market for around $150 to $450 USD, depending on the strength of the doubling, overall eye appeal, and how well the coin is presented for sale. Coins closer to the lower end of the range have noticeable circulation wear but clear double details, while coins with stronger doubling and more pleasing surfaces attract the higher bids. Whether you're just starting to explore coins or you've been collecting for years, understanding error coins like the 1951D double-die Lincoln Wheat Penny helps you see why even small variations mean big interest from collectors and real value when that coin goes up for auction.